I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized. Training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Hope and Health. Today we have Kat Finnerty with us. She's a yoga teacher, an author, and an MS warrior who's inspired thousands of people all over the world. We're going to hear her incredible journey. Kat, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Matt, it's such a pleasure to be back to see you.
Now, Kat, we had you as one of our first guests on our podcast last year. And at the time, you were going through a relapse. So it was a really important podcast for us because so many people in the MS community all over the world are either in fear of having a relapse or are going through one. And the guidance you gave people, feedback was incredible. I think me and the rest of the community want to know, we're over a year, I think now, how are you doing?
It was huge, to be honest, because I'd had 12 years relapse-free. I'd written a book about how to overcome MS, and then bam, 2 days before being on your show, I had a relapse. And it was really great because I always think every obstacle is an opportunity. And I thought, now I can really put to test all the things I really believe in. And when I went to see you in Calgary, my body was completely numb. And I really focused on my diet, my thoughts. I didn't live in fear of the future. And 12 months later, I'm still running. I just did actually a 40-kilometer 2-day trek up a live volcano in Vanuatu.
Wow.
So I have to say, and that's the furthest I've ever done. So I feel like I'm stronger than ever. So.
Well, congratulations. I'm so happy to hear this. I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, having met you and seen how you approach life and some of the things we discussed, the strategies you were going to put in place, I was pretty confident that we'd have you back on the show and that you'd be back in tip-top shape. Now, let's break it down for people. What did you do? I get this question asked so many times. I'm in the middle of a relapse. I've just had a relapse. What do I do? So what were let's get down to the detail. What was day one like for you?
Day one was denial. Day two was denial.
Okay.
I really didn't want to actually face it. Mm-hmm. I knew exactly what was going on, but I thought, and I think that was really important too. I think sometimes we can live in really a big fear and worry. So first of all, I didn't try to become all consumed with what was happening to me. But then when I finally faced reality, radically accepted reality, I thought, it's like this now. And I was upset. I was fearful because I spent nearly 10 years hardly being able to walk. And so I knew how bad it could get. And I'd done so much work to get where I was. So I thought, I can control my thoughts. I don't need to go into that fear and that worry. I need to really stay hyper-focused because I'm someone that truly believes that our thoughts become things. And I know it's sort of cliche, but I really truly believe that our thoughts have power. So I thought, what do I want to happen? Keep focused there. And then I thought I can control what foods I put in my body. And I was really strict on my diet, which I think I admitted that I'd let that lapse. So I went back onto pretty much a best bet diet. I started with overcoming MS. So it was no dairy, I was doing no gluten, and also really cutting back on saturated fat. So basically a whole foods, plant-based diet with some meat as well. I added meat back into my diet. And then I also, my legs were numb and my whole body was kind of had this weird nerve pain, but I just thought I can focus on the pain or I can focus on pushing through, because I feel always that every day I have a choice to become stronger or weaker, and there's no in between. So every day I thought, do as much as I can do. Yes, I took rest and break, but I thought, no, if you can run, go for a run. And I went to park run actually with my daughter.
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, I can do it. So I just kept focusing on trying to do as much as I could.
Now that's fantastic. I mean, there's no question. For me, I call it tightening up. I sometimes just tighten up what I'm doing. You're already making good nutritional choices to the best of your ability at the time, but you simply tightened up. So when you did that, how long was it before you started seeing a change, like before the symptoms started to go away?
Well, Matt, to be honest, I took steroids because while I love the idea of mindset, nutrition, and fitness, nothing is going to work as well sometimes as a powerful drug. But of course, we have the karmic law of pharmaceuticals. Of course, every time we take a drug, there is a reaction, there is consequences. But I took steroids, which definitely didn't help right away. But within 3 weeks, I was back to normal, back to where I was pre attack. And the reason I believe I had that relapse, I got really angry and upset about something and stressed, which is one thing that I really believe to control. And that was one thing that I really have always worked on, but I got really angry and stressed about something. So I had to really work on letting that go. And I think that was a real big part.
If we go back to that, let's talk about like what you do to control thoughts, how important it is to be able to let those thoughts come in, but at the same time, be able to control where they're going to go. Are they going to take over? Are you going to be able to push them out? What kind of things do you do to control your thought process?
I always say, I think we have 70,000 thoughts every single day, and we can't stop our thoughts. I can't wake up and think, I'm not thinking today, but I can choose which thoughts to believe, and I can choose the quality of my thoughts. So I studied meditation for years. About 20 years ago, I got severely depressed. I was driving past trees and I wanted to drive into them. And I decided at that moment I had to find a way to heal, not just my body, but also my mind. And that's when I discovered Buddhism. And I would travel 8 hours a day to just go to this class. And I learned that we don't learn meditation to look really zen when we meditate. We learn meditation to learn that we are the ones talking in our heads. It is only us, and we have control over that. But it's really hard, like to even focus on breathing in and breathing out. That's hard. So by controlling my thoughts, for me, I believe in breath work, meditative breath work, mindfulness. So the mindfulness is really watching my thoughts and going, and being aware of it. Because so many times there's so many things going on in our head, we're not even aware of this whole story going on. So I really think, what am I thinking? And I can usually feel it in my gut when I'm feeling at unease. I go, there's obviously thoughts going on in my head that aren't serving me. So I really try to dive into it. And I think, what would my best friend say to me right now? And I try to be my own best friend.
Now, as you did this, I mean, you obviously share your journey publicly. You've written a book, you on podcasts, you're very active on social media. How important was it for the community to support you, and what kind of feedback did you get as you shared your story?
Well, I was on your podcast, Matt, and so I put a lot of that out there. It was on social media as well, and a lot of people were like, this helped a lot, just especially hearing how I was challenged having children and dealing with MS and all the things I did to overcome it. But then there is those other people that I was really surprised at the anger and the vitriol, and, people saying, oh, that Kat Finnerty, she's just like Matt Embry. I thought, wow, that's a compliment, but they didn't mean it in that way. And I think a lot of people get angry and frustrated when you suggest that you have agency. And I always think we have a responsibility. We have the ability to respond to what is happening to us. And then, although diet, mindset, exercise may not be the cure-all for everyone, and I had and I've also done Lemtrada. So I don't believe, for me, and actually I wanted to ask you about that as well, but I was surprised at how many people get angry when you suggest that, yes, you might do your DMTs or other things, but if DMTs worked, then it would work for everyone all the time. Or if diet worked, it would work for everyone all the time. But it doesn't. So where is the point of difference? And for me, I think it's because when you just do one thing, it's not enough. That's why I think that diet, mindset, and movement is important, because I think healing and dealing well with MS is a multifaceted approach. But Matt, what I wanted to ask you was, do you believe in a drug? Like, where are your thoughts around this?
Well, Kat, and I think this is actually the first time I've ever been asked this on the podcast from one of our guests. But I'm still, for me, and again, it can be a frustrating journey from my perspective, because I'm open to anyone doing whatever they want to do. I go out of my way to share with people that I'm simply sharing information. What you choose to do to treat your MS is completely up to you. And I think that people in our community and in all health communities, they need to do their own research and they need to implement what they want to do. For me, I'm still sticking strong to optimal doses of vitamin D, a dairy-free, gluten-free, low-fat, low-sugar, almost no beans diet with daily exercise, meditation principles, and mindfulness practice. For me, I've still chosen not to use any of the DMTs. And I've shared publicly that if these science-based strategies did not work, I'd likely be getting a transplant. It's controversial that even that topic is controversial, in my opinion. Things like have been around for so long. There's so much hard science supporting. I understand the risks. But again, it's my journey. And I try to share with people, these are just simply my decisions. You got to do what you want to do. And whatever you want to implement into your life, it's your journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but this is what I want to ask you, Matt.
Sure.
I had nearly 18 years ago. So is not new. But what I want to ask is, because when I go on to, the Facebook group, and I'm moderator
Sure.
on one of the biggest Facebook groups now, the multiple sclerosis.
Yes. Congratulations for that, by the way.
Yeah, I know it's been great. But the thing is, when I go on there and I say, diet, health, mindset can help, and also medical intervention, and they say, oh, well, people get so angry about the fact that I could afford. And I think, why are you mad at me? I really question why is it not being offered as not at least a second line or first line treatment? Why is it not at least people given the opportunity to be offered it? When I think it's almost like the community said, well, that's why you got over it. It's like, but why is it not offered? What's going on here? I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, but do you have any insight on that? Because I'm confused.
I mean, again, I think that the MS medical ecosystem is very complex. It's billions of dollars of drug money. It's billions of dollars of simply providing healthcare for people with MS, whether it be the MRIs or wheelchairs or walkers, assisted living. I mean, there's so much money in this disease, and it is a cash cow. I mean, let's be frank. There are very few diseases that play out over 30 years. And also, it's a very convenient disease for the pharmaceutical industries because it takes so long to play out. So we can go back in time, and there were drugs that were recommended in early 2000s, say, where we don't know what this is going to do, but we think it'll have something to do in the long term. But they don't necessarily tell you that they don't know. And so you may have good short-term outcomes, maybe fewer relapses, things like this. But then by the time you have serious problems, 20 years, 30 years in, either that drug is gone, there's no one doing long-term studies on it, And nobody is advocating for the patient population, except for me, I feel, and people like you and others. I mean, I shouldn't say no one. I take that back. There are very few of us advocating for the patients who are like, hey, what happened? Like, there's studies now that show those drugs had no effect on long-term progression, but they've moved on to the next drug. The patent cycles have ended. And we've gone on to the next MS breakthrough. And having been in this for 30 years, I've lived through this cycle numerous times, and I try to share people that this is a cycle. And I think that, and I want to kind of get into this because I think it is important to talk about the negativity, the hostility, the vitriol that does happen online. Because when I went public over 10 years ago and I called out some of the drugs that have now proven to have no long-term effect, I was called horrendous things. People had no issue publicly saying awful things about me in posts and forums. And, I received email upon email. I'd wake up a Sunday morning to just a scathing email, right? And I think this was part of the journey. And no one now, 10 years later, has written and apologized to me and said, hey, you got it right, we got it wrong. Like, no one, not one person. And so when I see these kind of things happening to someone like you, it's part of the journey. Why that is, I don't know. But why have you chosen to stay in it? I mean, I have my own decisions. I'm curious, like, now that you're experiencing this, having gone public with the podcast and the book, and you're moderating this forum, like, why do it?
I feel like I would be a morally bankrupt individual if I didn't share all these things that helped me, because having, like you, I'm nearly 30 years with MS at the end of this year, and it's horrible. I wanted to die. My disease trajectory was grim. At the age of 30, my children's stroller was my walker. I couldn't see it in my eye. My arms didn't really work. I was walking around dragging my left leg around like some kind of, like a drunk, always getting kicked out of bars. I'm like, I'm not drunk yet. I've got MS. But on airplanes, is she drunk? No, I'm not. So, and I didn't want to live like that. I taught fitness and health, and I didn't want anyway, I know how horrible the disease is. It's horrible. And if I didn't share all the things I did to get to where I am today, I feel like I'd be a morally bankrupt human being. And it was hard coming out. And I actually was going to publish my book anonymously. But then I felt, no, I've got to be out there really talking to people and sharing it. And I really reflected actually on last time when I spoke to you, and you were telling me that it was actually your dad that came up with the diet. And I know for me, like 30 years ago, I was in a little town in Australia going to the library, trying to sign out books or request books about MS to collate all this information. And there was basically Swank Diet and a few other books that were written about it. But it was really hard to find the information. So hard. And so I basically used myself as a guinea pig as well. Like I've tried, and I've injected and ingested hundreds of thousands of natural and unnatural things into my body. And I've done the CCSVI, and I've done different. And so I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to share, and a lot of things worked and a lot of things didn't work. Mm-hmm. And I nearly died many times, but all that came and gave me information and allowed me to do what I'm doing now, which is actually not just recovering from MS, but reversing the symptoms that I had for over 10 years, which, yes, relapse. People will say to me, oh yeah, you had a relapse, you got better. I'm like, no, I had for 10 years, I had about 4 massive relapses every year. I was on I had a very heavy disease burden, and I turned that around. And it did take me 15 years to run again. It took a long time. Mm-hmm. And people give up hope. And I think, don't give up hope. Don't stop trying. And I think because a lot of people just think, this is it. This is my life. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I feel a moral obligation to share that.
But I also think that, and again, I've said this in other interviews, I want to be really clear. I didn't think anyone would take me seriously to the 20-year mark. And that's with multiple sclerosis. The first 5 to 10 years doesn't tell you much for most people. It's not till you hit the 15-year mark, 20-year mark. That's when you start to really see the effects of the disease for most, not for all, but for most people. So for that first 10, 15 years, people just would have said the same thing. Oh, it's too early in the disease process. It's benign MS, it's mild MS. It's all the same story. But at the 20-year mark, now people are going to listen. You know, what you're doing must be having some sort of effect. And for me, I went public my 20th year anniversary. And that story made headlines. So I think that, not that I want to say that I was right, but it did seem to prove itself out that it was that narrative that really started to break through. But even so, I still to today, get tons of negative feedback. I think that none of that has come to a close. In fact, it's intensified in the last, I would say, few years. But I see it as almost a second part of the battle. So, Kat, you asked me why I decided to go public, and at one point, and I think I shared, some of the same ideas you do. Simply, you want to help people. Hopefully, the information that we share will help somebody else, and perhaps they're going to take that and pass it on to the next person. But we're also talking about some of the pitfalls of doing that. And you moderate, congratulations again, likely the largest Facebook group of multiple sclerosis patients all over the world. And I think that you also get your fair share of pushback and negativity. For me, I now at this stage in my life, it's more or less I post and ghost. So I don't even read the comments most of the time. I just post and ghost, and I just keep going. You've chosen to do something very different. You're engaging daily with people. How much energy does that take?
I'm someone that believes if I hate the haters, what does that make me? If I judge the judgers, what does that make me? And I get in trouble for posting things sometimes, and people will come at me, and I'll have to look at the post and think, well, actually, you're right in a way. I have to moderate myself too. I have to realize that just because I think a certain way doesn't mean I have to understand if I believe one thing, someone else believes another, and that doesn't make me right, and it doesn't make them wrong. So as a moderator, it's really important, and I have people that say horrible things, but I'm like, I could cut out your comment if I wanted to. I have the power, but I don't. I allow you to have your voice because I think that's important. And I think the interesting bit is that when people get really angry and call it not science, it's sort of like an us or them. And I don't, that's what I'm trying to understand, why they believe it's an us or them. I always think, why don't you think they both can coexist at the same time?
And by us and them, sorry, for our audience who may not be as intimately familiar with the MS world, us and them can be sometimes drugs or pharmaceutical solutions versus more natural or diet and nutrition, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly.
Yes. Sorry, yeah. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to make it clear for our listeners.
Yeah. So I try to really just allow them to have their voice and just be there and show up, because there's this really loud and strong group that are DMT only. And I'm not against drugs. I've done, and and that's another thing. I did a drug called Limtrada, which, from what I can see from people who've done it, it stops the disease. It's the most highest efficacy drug, which is not being offered, which is another thing I find interesting, that they've stopped offering this as a drug. But that's another discussion.
But to be clear, I don't believe there's any drug that stops the disease. There's no drug that has been shown to proven long-term progression, as far as I know.
So I'm sort of looking at studies 10 years out. There's no disease progression, and there is no disease activity at all 10 years out for 60% of the people. And there's been improvements. So yes, I agree. It's not it stops progression, I guess, a lot longer term than a lot of the other drugs. So that's what I'm saying with Lemtrada, but it seems like it's being phased out. So I really am finding researching that really interesting. But as moderator, it's trying to allow people to have their voice, and I want to be out there, and part of me going on there is to help share the things that have helped me and help people find other ways to deal with their illness rather than going, MS sucks, because I read a million posts like that every day. I want to die. MS sucks. It's so awful. And I always say that this is the hand we're dealt, so we can choose how we deal with it. And the thing is, I believe that we can turn our pain into strength, not collateral damage, because when we don't heal ourselves, those wounds are wide open, and we pass that pain onto other people, onto those people around us, onto our children. And that's why I'm so passionate as well about, as being a mod in a group, as well as try to sort of, can we almost change how we're approaching it? Do we always have to see it as being the worst thing in the world and horrible? And because that pain we transfer onto other people. In fact, they've done a study of people's dogs. And when people are stressed all the time and have higher cortisol levels, they can test it in the hair of the dog. So we don't just transfer our pain onto the other people, but we transfer our pain onto our animals and our pets. So it's how do we want to keep showing up, and the reasons why we want to look to have the best life, because they say we only live once, but that's not true. We live every single day, but we only die once. And so how can we live our best life with the cards that were dealt today at this moment?
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to finish up talking about a little bit more of the online space. How crucial do you think it is to have these online communities for people who are struggling with chronic illness?
When I was first diagnosed nearly 30 years ago, pre-computer for me anyway, because I was very late to the game. The research and the knowledge was so hard to come by. And I remember when my first neurologist when I first got diagnosed, I said to him, "Oh, will diet help?" And he said, "Oh, no, Tier, take your DMT." Look, I really love this neurologist. He was so great. But he really put me off for the first 6 years about diving into nutrition. And I think if I had a community or had more information around, it would have helped a lot more to give me the confidence that it actually was important. And I think because we live in such a huge world with, and I'm asking the questions of people, what's working for you? Because, who's going to study diet, mindset, and nutrition? Who's going to spend the money to study that? Nobody. So what we do have is a great big community now in MS resources and education, or over 100,000 people. And so when you ask 100,000 people, hey, who's doing these things and how are you finding it? That's huge, because if, you got all these people saying, look, diet has really helped me. That's information for people that is not necessarily being studied. Oh, you had that girl Crystal on your podcast. Wow, she is so amazing. I just love the fact that she's got that foundation now that's researching this stuff. I mean, she's incredible.
Now, when we look at these online spaces, no doubt, in my opinion, they can be helpful. Even this podcast itself does, the majority of the people who encounter it, it's going to be in the online space, one of the social media platforms. Even though we're on television, it's very likely it's the online space where people are seeing it. So from my perspective, the online space is crucial for our community, especially when new discoveries come out, because things can move so quickly. It decentralizes the knowledge for people, and it can flow freely. But there are dangers. I have had personal experiences, myself and others near to me, who become too lost in the negativity in the online space. And I truly, from my own journey, can see it as a danger. It can be a lot of negative energy, a lot of time. It can even immobilize you, almost paralyze you in a way physically when you're engaging it. How do you protect yourself from that?
People often say they can throw something at you, but it's your choice to catch it. I don't catch any of it. So people can say things, and it's my choice whether I catch it and wear it or not. And I don't. But a lot of times people say, not everyone's going to like you. And, there's always going to be different opinions. And I get that. But I'm someone that will also self-reflect, and I'll think, am I showing up in the world in a way that, might upset anyone? And how can I be kinder and more loving? And when I see all that negativity online, I realize they're coming from a place of extreme pain. And I used to be that person. I used to be that person that was so depressed and so angry and so frustrated. So how can I judge them and not have compassion for them when I was there myself? Every day we can choose to be happy, or feel crappy. Every single time I choose my thoughts. And like I said, the problem is when we get on these forums and we rant and we rave about and we rally about how much life sucks and MS sucks, we spread that. It's contagious. So I'm sort of on there trying to go, can we just be a little bit more loving? Can we be more proactive and think that we have a responsibility, the ability to respond, but we have a responsibility to others about how we show up in the world and what we're spreading.
Do you find that your message goes beyond MS right now?
My book originally was about how I overcame my husband's betrayal in 12 hours. So my message and my message is much more than MS. It's about how to have how to overcome suffering. I mean, how do we overcome suffering as quickly as possible? In life, suffering is inevitable. Buddha said, life is suffering, but there is a path out of it.
Kat, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Again, to give people a quick recap, the last time we talked, you were in the midst of a relapse. Today, you are back, living symptom-free right now?
I'd say, look, there are lingering things from yesterday. I actually finally got this MRI report that I had last year. And I love the idea of ignorant bliss. I try not to read MRI reports, and I have only had one MRI in the last 12 years. And reading it, it said her brain is, full of MS lesions. But I know that. But the symptoms I have are so negligible that I don't really notice them. My foot cramps every now and then. I can still be not great with balance. I teach yoga, and I look at my students, and they're way better than I am holding balances, but they're small things. Like I said, I just climbed I had a goal to climb from sea to summit to sea, this live volcano, and it was brutal and it was hard. It was the biggest hike I've ever done. It was 40 kilometers, and my feet were bloodied and blistered. And I thought, I can focus on my bloodied feet, and I wanted to stop. Or I can focus on this tremendous feat, the fact that I've overcome and done so much. And so that's the thing. I think we can always choose our thoughts. And I say to myself all the time, you can do hard things. I don't want to do it. When I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, this was a dumb idea. Why am I doing this? But I always feel so much better once I've done it.
Now, would you describe yourself as a goal-oriented person? You've written a book, you achieved these hikes, and if so, how important do you feel it is for people to be setting these goals, whether they're small or big?
Yeah, well, every day I'm thinking, just get to lunch, without, I set very small goals for myself, very short goals. I need accountability. I really am someone that needs accountability, which is, so whenever I travel a lot, whenever I land anywhere, I go, I'm like a exercise seeking missile. I go and try and find people who want to go for a walk, who want to work out. So I'll put on a Facebook. I'll go on a local Facebook group and I say, who's going to the gym? Who's walking? Mountain biking. I'm here. Who wants to do something? So I really need accountability. I need things to look forward to. I really think every time, like, what new challenge can I set for myself? And I'm someone that I have a million ideas all the time, and some of them I succeed at, and others I don't. But I think it's really important I think his goals are important, but I think more it's just habits. I think you need to adopt habits about how you eat and how you move. So every day I get up and I try to find someone to walk with, or I go myself at 6 a.m. every morning. I'm like, I'm getting up. So I think those habits, goals are good, but I think habits are more important because sometimes we're not motivated. So we're not motivated every day to do stuff. It's raining or whatever. But if it's a habit, you're like, nope, it's a non-negotiable. I'm going to do it because I can do hard things and I'll be better for it.
Now, there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this podcast who were just diagnosed. A lot of the people who reach out to us at MS Hope are people who are brand new to the disease. What would your advice be to them? If you could speak to them right now, what would you say?
Nobody knows the future. The future is not yours to see at all. You only have control over this moment and this day. And our thoughts become things. So what thoughts you have in your head could be potentially what you cause in the future. So I think it's really important to keep your thoughts focused on today and not worry. You could be hit by a bus tomorrow. You don't need to worry about tomorrow. You need to worry about what you do today. A means to an end means just that. You got to do the means now to get to the end. And one thing I practice a lot is joyful effort. I focus on the effort, not the outcome. Because a lot of times, like you said, MS, it's a long game. 30 years out, it's a long game. So we don't always see the long game, but you need to do the effort in the moment and not worry about the outcome. You just have to do in the moment the best you can do. I always say to myself, given that it's like this right now in my life, what is the best thing for me to do and think for my present and my future happiness? So it's not about getting stuck in a story about, oh, woe is me, my life sucks, what could happen? It's like, no, those thoughts don't deserve me. So I ditch them. Another thing that I really feel is that the MS, when I've been to an MS clinic recently, they said, oh, be careful, don't get too hot, really moderate what you do. I think, no, that's a huge mistake. I think people wrap themselves up in cotton wool and think, I can't do these things now. Whatever you stop doing, you will never get that back unless you keep pushing towards it. So yes, by all means, take a break when you need to, then get up and then fight back like hell. Because I used to be someone that thought I was a fighter. When I first got diagnosed, I was like, I'm going to fight this. I am not going to let this beat me. But then I realized I wasn't fighting. I was just surviving. I was taking my DMT. I had 3 kids in 3 years, and every single day I was just surviving. And it was at that moment when I thought I want to drive into that tree that I realized I wasn't fighting. I was just surviving, and I needed to find another way. I needed to take control of my illness, of my life, and actually do things that were going to help me rather than just try to get through every single day. But choosing my thoughts. I listen to Buddhist podcasts all day, like all day.
Kat, I really love your energy and where you're pushing, so many of the things you say I'm in alignment with in regards to how we perceive things, putting purpose behind even the smallest things, seeing the purpose of the hard things, and where it's pushing us. What's next? Where do you see this going for you?
It's interesting that because I'm not here to profit from anyone's pain. And a lot of people say, oh, you're just there to sell a book. I'll give my book away to anyone who wants it. If you want my book, message me. I will give you a free copy. I'm not here to profit from anyone's pain. Any of the extra money, I have a project in Vanuatu I'm passionate about called 1,000 Days of Life. People there don't have enough protein, and so their babies are born with stunted brain growth. And another thing that came out of our last interview, Matt, was Selma Blair saw our podcast, and she put on her story that she was reading my book. I've had a dream that never let a good disaster go to waste, which is it's not just my memoir, but it's my war cry. Because I believe that we are the masters of our disasters and we are the creator of our detonators. And I believe when more of us realize to never let a good disaster go to waste, the world will change, at least one person at a time.
Do you find it challenging to have people in your life who can't see it that way?
No, because I was that person. I think people say to me, oh yeah, but you're just this happy-go-lucky person. And I'm like, I'm not. I have to work at it exceedingly hard. They say if we want happiness, we need to see others want to be happy. But I'm an inherently selfish person. I want something, I want it. And then I have to remember, I learned this when I was a child. I'm the eldest of 5 children. And my dad, every week, we'd get a 6-pack of donuts. And my brother, who's in the middle, he used to always get the 2 donuts. And one day I decided it wasn't fair. I'm like, Dad, why does Martin get the 2 donuts? My dad always got the chocolate eclair. My mom was on a diet, but my brother always got the 6-pack of donut. He always got the 2. And I said, Dad, it's not fair. And he took my donut and he gave it to my brother. And then my brother was laughing at me, and my dad took my brother's 3 donuts and gave them to my sisters. And he said, listen, don't you ever be unhappy about someone else's happiness. And he said to my brother, don't you ever be happy about another person's unhappiness. And so I think it's really just a day-to-day challenge to wish happiness for others. I really look at other people, especially the people who challenge me. I look at them and I go, I just wish you happiness and love. I wish happiness for me, and I wish it for you. And it's their journey. Everyone's got to go on their own journey. And I think by sharing that there's an alternative to suffering, and I teach people how to overcome suffering in 12 hours with my 12 principles. The suffering from divorce, disease, depression, and irritating people. It's a choice. Suffering is a choice.
Kat, thank you so much. Amazing to have you on our podcast again. I'm so happy that you're doing so well and you're still on your journey towards optimal health. Your story I know it's affected thousands of people. You're an inspiration. Good luck with your book. Good luck with your next adventure. And we are going to check in with you again.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for joining us. Hope and Health is made possible through generous donations. To learn more or support the show, visit mshope.com, where you'll find free science-based resources.